Watch closely. At his family's anniversary dinner, he flipped the table at her feet, wine, china, everything shattering. "I'm marrying her," he said, pulling his pregnant mistress close. His mother laughed. Nobody knew the wife they shamed once cleaned floors and now secretly owned the empire his salary came from. The candlelight made everything look softer than it was. It was the family's anniversary dinner, 30 years since Gloria and her late husband first gathered the family around a table. Now the table stretched long and white through the grand dining room of the family home, covered with crystal and flowers. Everyone was there. Gloria at the head, proud as a throne. The two sisters, Danielle and Renee, in silk. Cousins, old friends, a few important faces from the company. And near the far end, quiet as always, sat Imani, Marcus's wife. She had cooked half the dishes on that table with her own 2 hands. Nobody thanked her. Nobody ever did. She had long stopped expecting it. Watch closely. This is where a marriage dies. Not with a whisper, with a crash. Marcus arrived late. He always did. But tonight, he did not arrive alone. A woman walked in on his arm, young, glowing, in a red dress made to be seen, and one hand rested gently on a rounded belly. Simone. Imani knew the face. She had seen it at the company. She had shaken that hand. She had once smiled at that woman, kindly, never knowing. Now that woman was carrying her husband's child and walking into her family's dinner like she already owned the room. A hush moved down the table. Forks stopped. Eyes flicked from Simone to Imani and back. But nobody looked shocked. And that was the first knife. They all knew. The sisters knew. Gloria knew. This whole family had been keeping a secret from the only person it truly belonged to. Marcus did not sit. He walked to the head of the table beside his mother, picked up a glass and tapped it with a knife. Ting, ting, ting. "Everyone," he said, smiling wide, "I have an announcement." Gloria smiled up at her son, proud, waiting. Marcus looked down the long table, straight at his wife. "For years," he said, "I carried something that was never good enough. I told myself it was love. It wasn't. It was pity." The room went still. "My marriage to a cleaning woman's daughter," Marcus said, "a floor scrubber I felt sorry for. I gave her my name, my house, my whole life, and what did she bring to this table? Nothing. Nothing." That word again. Imani set down her fork. She did not raise her voice. "Marcus," she said quietly, "not here, not in front of everyone." "In front of who?" he snapped. "My family? They agree with me. She was always beneath me. Ask them." And here is the cruelty. Nobody at that table said one word to stop him, not one. Then Marcus did the thing the whole world would later talk about. He gripped the edge of the long table with both hands, and he flipped it. The crash swallowed the room. Crystal shattered. Wine ran red across the white cloth like a wound before the whole thing went over. Plates exploded on the floor. 30 years of that family's dinners ended in one violent second at Imani's feet. Someone screamed, a chair fell, and Danielle, of course, already had her phone up filming. Imani did not flinch. Wine soaked the hem of her dress. Broken china lay around her shoes worn soft like her mother's once were. And she sat there, calm, in the ruin of a dinner she had cooked with her own hands. Marcus stepped over the mess and pulled Simone close by the waist. "I'm marrying her. This woman, carrying my child, a real woman." He reached into his coat and threw a brown envelope down into the wine and glass in front of Imani. "Divorce papers. Sign them and get out of my family's house." Simone slid her arm through his and looked down at Imani with soft, sweet poison. "He deserves better. Surely even you can see that." Gloria lifted one of the few glasses still standing. "To my son and his future." The sisters raised theirs too, over the wreckage, to the woman's face. Have you ever been thrown away by the very people you fed? Have you ever been the strongest person in a room full of people certain you were the weakest? That was Imani, sitting in wine and broken glass, saying nothing. Because here is what none of them could see. Inside her chest, a storm was raging. One word she could say into the little phone in her bag and watch this man lose the job, the car, the whole borrowed life he was proud of. One word, and the family toasting over her bowed head would have had nothing. But her mother's voice held her still. Never let them see your worth before it's time. So Imani slowly rose to her feet. She did not pick up the papers. She did not cry. She looked at Marcus and did the one thing that should have scared him if he had been smart enough to be scared. She smiled. "Okay, Marcus," and nothing more. She stepped over the broken glass, past the mistress, past the laughing sisters, past a mother-in-law who would not meet her eyes. At the door, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, covered the name with her thumb, and answered in 3 low words. "Not yet. Wait." Somewhere across the city, in a glass tower none of these people ever thought about, a room full of powerful men and women went still and did exactly what she said. Do you know how much strength it takes to stay quiet when everything in you wants to roar? Most people never learn it. Imani had learned it young. She did not drive home. She had no home there anymore. She drove to the only place that still held love for her, the hospital. Down a quiet hallway, in room 214, her aunt lay sleeping, the last living person who had loved Imani before she had anything at all. The old woman had known Odessa. She had watched a girl in worn shoes grow into whatever she was now. Imani sank into the plastic chair beside the bed, still in her wine-stained dress, and finally let her shoulders fall. A nurse named Ivan watched from the doorway. Ivan knew Imani. She had seen her here late at night, in old clothes, sitting with strangers who had no family of their own. She saw the ruined dress now. She saw the tired eyes. She said nothing, but she remembered every bit of it. Remember Ivan. She matters later. Imani looked at her sleeping aunt. She thought of the envelope lying in the wine on the dining room floor. She thought of the toast raised over her bowed head. And here is the truth this whole story turns on. Some women don't break. They wait. Imani had been waiting a very long time. But to understand her silence, you have to understand where she came from, and that changes everything. Long before the suits and the towers, there was a girl in worn shoes. Her mother's name was Odessa, and Odessa cleaned buildings at night. Picture it, a little apartment on the edge of a rough part of town. Thin walls, a heater that worked when it felt like it, and a mother who left every evening in a gray uniform, carrying a bucket and a bag of rags, coming home when the sun came up. Young Imani did her homework in stairwells and break rooms while her mother mopped marble floors in offices that would never know her name. She learned math under flickering lights. She learned to read by watching the world of people who thought they were better than her. And she watched her mother's hands. Those hands were always cracked, always tired, always working. But Odessa never let the girl feel small. "Listen to me, baby," Odessa used to say, wiping a floor so clean you could see your face in it. "Never let them see your worth before it's time. You hear me? Let your work speak when your mouth can't." Imani did not fully understand it then. She understood it later. Oh, she understood it later. Odessa had one rule above all others. Be kind to the people the world forgets. The janitors, the cooks, the night shift folks. Because I am one of them, she said, and one day you will be somebody, and when you are, you remember these hands. There were nights they had little to eat. Odessa would give her daughter the bigger plate and say she wasn't hungry. Imani knew the truth even then. A mother who gives you her last bite is teaching you what love looks like without ever saying the word. That lesson stayed in the girl long after the hunger was gone. Then came the winter Odessa got sick. It happened fast, a cough that would not leave, a tiredness that sleep could not fix. Doctors they could barely afford, and a hospital bed, much like the one Imani would sit beside decades later. On her last night, Odessa reached into the little drawer by her bed. She pulled out something worn and soft, a single cracked leather work glove, the right hand, the one she wore most. She pressed it into her daughter's fingers. "When they laugh at your hands," Odessa whispered, "remember these hands built something. You are going to build something too, something they can't take." Why a glove? Imani did not know yet, but she never let it go. Keep that glove in your mind. It comes back. Odessa passed before sunrise, and the girl in worn shoes was alone. Now, here is the part the world never saw. Imani was brilliant, not loud brilliant, quiet brilliant, the kind that watches and learns and waits. She worked cleaning jobs just like her mother. She scrubbed the floors of the same kind of towers. But at night, instead of sleeping, she studied numbers, land, oil, the dirty, powerful business that ran under the whole city. She saw something others missed, a piece of tired land nobody wanted, sitting over something everybody would soon need. She scraped together every coin, she borrowed, she begged. She made one bold, quiet move that no rich man ever connected to a cleaning woman. And that move grew, slowly, in the dark, under a company name with no face attached. She built it the way her mother taught her to mop a floor, patiently, completely, until it shined. By the time she was a grown woman, that quiet company had become something enormous, an empire in oil. And she kept her name off of all of it, hidden behind papers and lawyers and a blind trust, because she remembered her mother's words. Never let them see your worth before it's time. Then one day, she met a charming man at a company event, a mid-level manager with a big smile and bigger dreams. His name was Marcus. He did not know who she really was. She liked that. For once, a man looked at her plain clothes and simple ways and had no idea. He thought she was just a sweet woman with a modest job, and she let him think it. She wanted to be loved for the woman, not the walls around her. She was wrong, and the betrayal was only beginning to grow teeth. At first, it was small things. Marcus liked to be seen. He liked the corner office feeling, even when he did not have the corner office. He climbed at the company, her company, though he never knew, and every step up made him a little colder. He started to hint that Imani was holding him back. "You dress like the help," he'd say, fixing his tie. "You talk to the janitors like they're family." He did not know the janitors were the only honest men in his building. He did not know his wife knew every one of their names and their children's names, too. His family made it worse. Danielle and Renee never liked Imani. To them, she was the maid's daughter who had married up. They whispered it at dinners. They laughed at her shoes. And their mother, Gloria, the queen of that family, would look at Imani over the rim of her glass like she was something stuck to the bottom of it. "My son married beneath the family," Gloria liked to say. "But love is love, I suppose." Beneath. There's that word again. Then came Simone. Simone worked at the company too, planning its events. She was polished and hungry. She had grown up with nothing, and she had promised herself she would never be poor again, not ever, not for any reason. That was her fear. That was her engine. Fear can make a person do ugly things and call it survival. She saw Marcus. She saw a man who wanted to feel important, and she gave him exactly that feeling. She laughed at his jokes. She told him he was wasted on a plain wife. She whispered that a man like him deserved a woman who shined. Marcus was insecure. Simone was afraid. Put those two together, and you get a fire. The affair grew in hotel rooms and late work dinners, and soon she was carrying his child, and the plan became simple. Get rid of the wife, take the man, take the life. But they needed a story, so they built one. They started telling people that Imani was a gold digger, that she clung to Marcus for his paycheck, that she brought nothing to the marriage and lived off his hard work. Do you feel that? The cruelty of it. The woman who owned the ground they stood on was being called a leech, and she could not say a word, because to say a word was to end the game too soon. Marcus, fed these lies daily, grew bolder. He cut off Imani's access to their shared account to teach her a lesson. He froze the cards. He bragged to his sisters that he was starving the maid back to the streets. He never knew the money in that account was a small trickle from a river that ran through her wife's name. And this is the moment I promised you, the first time we truly talk about the size of it. One evening, alone in the dark kitchen, Imani sat with a single sheet of paper. It was a quiet report from her real company. She read the numbers on it, and then she looked at the frozen bank card Marcus had left on the counter to shame her. The salary Marcus bragged all over town, the salary he called his kingdom, was less than what her company earned in a single afternoon. The house he flaunted, the house he threatened to throw her out of, wouldn't have covered 1 week of what quietly moved through her hands. She should have felt powerful. She felt nothing but grief. Because money was never what she wanted from him. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to be held. She wanted one man, just one, to love the woman and not the walls around her. And that man had just called her nothing. She put her head down on that kitchen table, and for the first time in years, the strong woman went numb. Not crying, worse than crying, empty. She almost did it that night. She almost drove to Marcus, threw the papers on the table, and told him the truth just to be held one time, just to feel wanted for 1 hour. She picked up her phone. Her thumb hovered. Then she stopped. Because a woman who begs for love from a man who despises her will never be loved. She will only be used more gently. The numbness sat on her for days. She moved through life like a ghost. She went to work. She smiled at the janitors. She sat by her aunt's bed. But something inside had gone quiet and dark. One evening, her aunt awoke, weak but clear-eyed, and reached for Imani's hand. The old woman had known Odessa. She had watched this girl grow from worn shoes into whatever she was now. "You've got your mother's silence," her aunt whispered. "But baby, silence is only strong if you choose it. If they take it from you, it becomes a cage." Imani said nothing. She just held that thin hand and looked at the floor. "Are you choosing it?" the aunt asked, "or are you hiding in it?" That question sat in Imani's chest like a stone, because for the first time, she did not know the answer. Had she become so good at waiting that she had forgotten how to move? Had the quiet that saved her as a girl now become the thing burying her as a woman? She did not sleep that night. She sat in the dark and listened to that question over and over, until Yvonne found her. Remember Yvonne, the nurse? She found Imani slumped in the hospital chapel late one night, staring at the floor. And Yvonne did not say pretty words. She just handed Imani something she had dropped from her bag days before. The glove, Odessa's cracked leather glove. Imani held it, and her mother's voice came back across all the years. Let your work speak when your mouth can't. Something moved behind him on his eyes. The ghost stepped back. The woman returned. That very week, a message came to the phone she guarded so carefully. Her real company needed her. The annual shareholders gathering was coming, a grand gala where the biggest decisions of the year were made. And this year, there was a huge vote, a restructuring that could not move forward without one signature, the true owner's signature. Her. For years, she had let others speak for her in that room, a mystery owner behind glass. But this vote was too big to hide behind. This time, the owner had to appear, in person, in front of everyone. She sat with that message a long time. And then, in the middle of her thinking, another invitation arrived. This one from Marcus. He wanted her at a company event too, a big one. He said it was to settle things like adults. He said she should come and see how the real world worked before she signed the divorce. She looked at the two invitations, and slowly she understood. They were the same night, the same room, the same gala. Marcus wanted to humiliate her one final time in front of everyone who mattered. He planned to announce his new life, his new woman, his new baby, and toss his maid wife out in front of the whole industry. He picked the wrong room. But what happened next, no one saw coming. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of the tallest tower in the city. Chandeliers, marble floors, the kind Imani's mother used to clean, waiters in white gloves, every powerful name in the oil world under one glittering roof. Marcus arrived like a man who owned the place. Simone was on his arm in a stunning red gown, her chin proud, her chin high. Danielle and Renee floated behind in silk, and Gloria walked in last like a queen entering her court. They had a table near the front. Of course they did. Marcus made sure of it. Tonight was his night. He worked the room. He shook hands. He laughed too loud. He told everyone that big changes were coming in his life and to stay tuned for an announcement. He had no idea what announcement the night truly held. Then the lights dimmed and the host stepped to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Tonight we have a rare honor. For the first time, the founder and majority owner of this company, the person behind everything you see, has agreed to appear in person to cast the final vote on our future. Marcus froze, glass still in the air. The founder? The mystery owner? Here? Tonight? Whispers ran through the room like wind through grass. In all these years, no one had seen the owner's face. The most powerful person in the building was a ghost, a name on paper, a signature nobody could match to a face. Please, the host said, welcome the woman who built all of this from nothing. The woman. A door at the side of the room opened, a single spotlight turned, and Imani stood up. Not from the front, not from a grand entrance, from the small forgotten table in the back where her husband had placed her to shame her.
She stood, and she picked up the folded thing she had been holding. It was the glove, her mother's cracked leather glove. She held it in one hand as she walked. The room turned to look at her. And here is the thing about Imani in that moment. She did not look small anymore. She looked like the truth finally standing straight. She walked past Marcus, past Simone, past the sisters with their phones now hanging halfway down, forgotten, past Gloria, whose smile was slowly sliding off her face. She walked to the podium. She set the old glove down on it, gently, like laying a rose on a grave. Then she looked out at the room full of powerful people who had spent years signing deals with a name they could not picture. "Good evening," Imani said. Her voice was soft. It did not need to be loud. The whole room leaned in to catch it. "My name is on the papers most of you have signed. Some of you have shaken my hand and never knew it. Some of you have cashed checks with my name standing behind them." She paused. Her eyes moved, slowly, to one table near the front. "Including my husband." Silence. Total silence. Marcus's glass slipped in his fingers. He did not drop it, but his hand was shaking. That's not possible," he started. His voice cracked. "That's not—" Imani turned to him fully now, and for the first time all night she let a little of the pain show. Not weakness, just truth. "You froze our card to starve me, Marcus," she said. "That card pulls from an account I fund from mine. You've been living this whole time inside a house I could buy 1,000 times over and never feel it." There it is, the second time and the last time we truly speak of the size of it. And notice, she does not gloat, she grieves. "You called me a floor scrubber," she went on, quiet and clear. "My mother was a floor scrubber. She cleaned rooms like this one so men like you could feel important. And she raised a daughter who bought the whole building." Gasps around the room. Someone dropped a fork. Danielle's phone finally slid from her hand and clattered on the marble. Watch their faces now. This is the part they will never forget. Gloria, the proud queen, gripped the edge of the table like the floor was tilting under her. Renee looked at her sister, then at her brother, waiting for someone to tell her it was a joke. No one did. And the powerful men of the room, the ones who had never bothered to learn the plain wife's name, sat up straight, because every one of them was doing the same math. They had all shaken this woman's hand and looked right through her. They had all called her the little woman on Marcus's arm, and she had owned them the whole time. The waiters stopped moving. The music had died somewhere back when she first spoke. 100 people held one single breath. Marcus stood there, mouth open, the color gone from his face. All his life he had needed to feel above someone. All his life he had needed a person beneath him so he could feel tall. And now the ground itself was speaking, and it was her. "You said you were beneath me," Imani said. And now she stepped down off the podium, walked slowly toward him until she was close enough for him to hear the softest words of the night. "Marcus," Imani said gently, "you've been standing on my floor this whole time." He had no words. For the first time in his life, the loud man was silent. Simone shot to her feet, her red gown bright as a warning. "You're lying," she hissed. "You're a cleaner. You're nobody. This is a trick." Imani turned to her, and there was no anger in her face, almost pity. "You were afraid of being poor. I understand fear. I grew up in it. But you tried to build a life out of another woman's ruin. That house was never going to stand." Simone opened her mouth and closed it again. Her hand went to her belly, and for a second, under all that polish, she just looked like a scared girl who had bet everything on the wrong man. Now, Imani could have ended them all right there. One sentence to the room, one order. She could have had Marcus thrown out, exposed as a fraud, ruined on the spot with everyone watching and filming. She looked at him a long moment, and then she turned her back on him and walked back to the podium again. "I have a company to vote on," she said simply. "That's why I'm here, not for him." She could have destroyed them with one sentence. What she did instead was worse and fairer. She picked up the glove, she held it to a chest, and she cast her vote for the future of the empire her mother's hands had started in her heart, while the man who called her nothing stood frozen in a room that now knew exactly who she was. Some women don't break, they wait, and her waiting was over. You would think a man like Marcus would fall all at once. He didn't. He fell the way real people fall, piece by piece. The morning after the gala, the whole industry was talking. The mystery owner had a face now, and it was the plain wife Marcus had mocked for years. Everyone remembered his little toast to leaving the past behind. Everyone remembered how he raised his glass to the very woman who owned his paycheck. The video the sisters had filmed at the dinner, meant to shame Imani, now made its way around, and it only shamed him. There he was, flipping a table on the owner of the company and calling her a floor scrubber at his own family dinner next to his pregnant girlfriend. The board met quietly. Marcus's job was never really his own. He had climbed on charm and connections, not on merit, and now the connections turned to smoke. Within a week, his position was gone, not with a dramatic firing, with a cold, polite letter, the kind of letter he used to send other people. He tried to fight it. He called old friends. Their phones rang and rang. Men who had laughed at his jokes last month did not laugh now. Nobody wanted to be near the man who had insulted the owner to his face. And Simone? Here is the ugly truth about a love built on fear and status. When the shine was gone, so was she. She never wanted Marcus. She had wanted the life she thought Marcus could give her. The corner office, the big name, the safety. When all of that vanished, she looked at him and saw what was actually there. An unemployed man with a bad reputation and a family that had turned on itself. "You told me you were going places," she said to him one night, packing a bag. "You told me you'd take care of us." "I will," Marcus begged. "Give me time. I'll rebuild."
"With what?" she snapped. "Your name is a joke now. I'm not raising a child on a joke." She left. She took the child that would come and she moved on to the next man with the next promise. Because a woman running from poverty never stops running. That was her tragedy. She won the man and lost the prize. And the man was never the prize to her at all. Marcus sat alone in the big house, the house he had bragged about, the house that had never really been his. And he understood, slowly, that he had thrown away gold to hold on to glitter. He thought about the years, the quiet mornings when Imani made his coffee and asked about his day, and he barely answered. The nights she waited up, and he came home smelling of another woman. The way she smiled at the janitors while he sneered at them. He had thought her weakness was weakness. He saw now it was the strongest thing in the house, and he had spat on it. He picked up his phone once, late, and scrolled to her name. His thumb hovered over it, the same way hers once had over his. He wanted to call and say he was sorry. But sorry for what, exactly? For not loving her? For only seeing her when the whole world finally did? A man cannot apologize his way back into a house he burned down on purpose. He set the phone down. He did not call. What could he possibly say? And the family? Danielle and Renee had lived off the borrowed shine of their brother's status. They dropped his name at parties. They got invited to rooms because of who they claimed to be. When Marcus fell, those doors shut in their faces too. The whispers they used to spread about Imani now turned around and hunted them. Aren't those the sisters from that video, the ones laughing at the owner? Gloria, the proud queen, lost the most because she had the most pride to lose. Her family name, which she had polished her whole life, was now the punchline of the industry. And then, one gray afternoon, they came to Imani, all of them, standing outside her office door, a real office now, high in the tower, though she still kept it simple. Gloria first, the sisters behind, and Marcus at the back, thin and tired, holding his hat in his hands like a man at a funeral. They came to beg. "We were wrong about you," Gloria said, and the words cost her everything. "Please, we're family. Whatever happened between you and Marcus, surely you can help the rest of us, for the family's sake." Imani looked at them a long time, and do you know what she felt? Not triumph, not even anger anymore, just a quiet, tired peace. "I spent years trying to be enough for this family. You never once asked who I really was. You only asked what I could give and how little I could be given in return." "Imani, please," Marcus started. She lifted one hand, not in anger, just to stop him. "I'm not going to hurt you," she said. "I'm not going to chase you down or take your last coin. That's not who my mother raised. But I'm not going to save you either.
You have to live in the house you built. All of you. And that was the karma. Not fire, not revenge, just consequences, standing exactly where they were left. She did do one thing, though, something the family never saw. She quietly made sure the honest ones were cared for. The janitors in that building got raises they never expected. Yvonne, the nurse who handed her back the glove when she was at her lowest, found her hospital debts mysteriously cleared, and a note that said only, "Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." Imani walked out of that tower the same way she had walked into the gala, head high, saying nothing she did not need to say. Her life was the speech. Months passed, and the noise faded, the way all noise does. Imani did not move into a palace. She could have. She chose a quiet home with a garden and good light. She wore simple clothes. She still knew the names of the people who cleaned her building, and she still stopped to talk to them because she had never once forgotten that she had been them. One soft spring morning, she drove out to a small cemetery on the edge of town. She walked the familiar path to a modest headstone with the name Odessa on it. She knelt down in the grass, and she reached into her bag and took out the cracked leather glove, the right hand, the one her mother wore most. She had carried it through everything, through the marriage, through the mockery, through the hospital hallway and the gala, and the fall of the people who tried to bury her. "They finally saw, Mama," she said softly, laying the glove gently at the base of the stone. "But I never needed them to. You already knew what these hands could build." That is why she kept the glove, not to remember the pain, to remember the promise. A promise made by tired, cracked hands that this daughter would build something no one could take. And she had. Imani did not spend her days chasing the people who wronged her. She spent them building something new. She started a fund, quiet, of course, the way she did everything, for the children of cleaners and cooks and night shift workers, kids doing homework in stairwells under flickering lights, just like she once did. She gave them books. She gave them a chance. She gave them the thing her mother gave her, the belief that worn shoes do not decide where you end up.
Marcus needed someone beneath him to feel tall. And in the end, he learned the oldest truth there is. When you spend your life standing on people, one day the ground you're standing on stands up and you fall. Imani never needed to stand on anyone. That was the difference. That was always the difference. Some women don't break. They wait, not for revenge, but for the moment their worth speaks for itself. And when Imani's finally spoke, the whole world went quiet to listen. If Imani's silence taught you anything tonight, let it be this: your worth is never in someone else's hands. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, did she forgive too easily or exactly enough? Stay, there's another story waiting for you right here.